Hello, I'm your ex-Toycat, and today is going to be a special Saturday because, as you're all probably aware by now, every single Saturday on the channel, I usually do Q&A Saturday, where I respond to the previous week's Q&A questions, which were on the last week's Q&A Saturday. It's a fun once-a-week opportunity for me to have a back and forth with you about life, the universe, and of course, Minecraft updates, except today we're not doing that because a lot of people don't like Q&As. They feel like it's a forced format, or they feel like it's just too easy for format because I take questions from you and all I have to do is answer them. So today I figured, why not remove the Q part of Q&A Saturday, except why just remove the Q? Why not remove the A as well? That's right, today is officially And Saturday. It's the weekly series where you don't ask questions, I don't respond to them, but there are comments involved because I do want to keep the And part of Q&A Saturday. So let's go straight into this first comment, which comes in from Ducks Are Great, who says, this is not a question, and I'm not going to respond to you at all, Ducks Are Great, but I do want to say it is interesting because you'd figure every single comment should be either a question or a reaction, right? And this one doesn't really fall into either of those categories. And in a similar way, every single line you say in a conversation to friends or to whoever else, it's usually going to be either like a question or a statement, right? And there's something that's always a bit weird about that because there's like this perfect ratio of like questions to, you know, sentiments or statements that you issue that I've always found to be interesting and kind of hard to balance. Like for some people, it's tricky to speak to some people, right? We all have people we get along well with, we have people we don't get along so well with, and I've always wondered, the people you don't get along so well with, is there a way to reach them? Is there a perfect conversation you can have like, oh yeah, this guy really only likes football and I'm not really that into it. Should I just try to work with my limited knowledge of football and we won't connect on that way? Or should we find something that, you know, we do have something in common, like, oh, so hey, do you eat regularly? Have you noticed how the weather that applies to everyone in this country/area also applies to you and me? Wow, that's crazy we have that in common. And that sounds like it's a joke, but think about all of these tweets that say things like, do you remember this? Or were you born in a year and also are an age? Wow, that's crazy. Everyone else in that year is the same age, but let's not pretend that. Let's pretend you're special. Everyone likes to believe they're special, even on the most mundane connections. And just a fun little story here. I actually once connected with a girl. It was a first date, and we didn't watch any of the same TV shows, but I was like, oh yeah, it's crazy when you watch a TV show. Like the concept of watching a series, like, oh yeah, you watch one episode and then another, then another. You know, isn't it crazy YouTube, how you watch like YouTube videos? Because on YouTube, it's so rare to find someone who watches the same YouTuber as you. Value that and treasure it when you can. Or like maybe you could like go on a community and find someone else. Like if you want to find someone else who watches Toycat videos, you're on discord.gg/Toycat. Wow, I turned that into not only a good conversation, but an ad for myself. That was genius, I think you'll find. But let's move into the second and, which comes in from Joshua, but like spelt really brokenly. And he actually asks a question, which is no good. As you all do know, this is And Saturday. We don't like Q&A, that's lazy content. So we're going to remove the questions from this. As you can see, we're going to remove most of that statement and just make it, I don't before what the chicken egg. And this is a pretty good statement to go off because, you know, I don't before either. What the chicken egg is, it really strikes true to my core. It really makes you realize that we're all small humans on this same planet, sharing it with chickens and eggs, right? But yeah, when it comes to chicken and eggs, I'm really interested by the fact that chicken is like, you know, it's the most widely produced meat, or it's like the easiest produced, like in terms of the amount of space it requires. We basically bred a certain type of chicken because the chickens we know today are pretty new, like 50 to 60 years old. We basically bioengineered chickens so they'd be the perfect meat birds, and I don't know why I find that to be such a horrific, but also like again, fascinating thing, because a lot of people like be like, well, that's cruelty, but another part of me goes, you know what, that shows how cool humans are. Our cruelty is almost our weapon. Imagine if some chickens kidnapped a couple of people and then started breeding them together and then tried to start breeding humans so they'd like be more useful to chickens. I don't know what that'd be like. You know, they go out and provide things, and in some ways you can almost be like, well, that's a similar thing to how cats did it, right? Like cats exist and now they have these humans that go around get them food. So yeah, I don't know. Chicken is a really fascinating bird. I like chicken a lot. I like eggs a lot. And I think it's interesting that we don't have many dishes that combine chicken and eggs together. I'm just saying, there's a clear market for it, in my opinion. But speaking of things there is a market from, we've got Blaze Draws, who says the Ram and Scram update, the Bop It and Drop It update, and the Hulu and Woohoo update. And yeah, because in last week we spoke about the fact that the next update is officially not called the Cave Update. We know that's not the subtitle. And honestly, I think anyone could have said this to begin with. Like, even when I thought 1.15 the Cave Update, it would never be the Cave Update, right? Based on the fact that we have the update Aquatic, like, kind of plays around with the idea of what an update is. The Village and Pillage update. Like, based on this, you can kind of assume, like, oh, they're going to go for a fun update title next time. And honestly, I get why people like the idea of making something rhyme, like, oh, it's really fun when you go for like the Cavern and Schmavern update, or when you go for the Combat and Wombat update, or it's the update of Raves and Caves. Everyone loves things when they rhyme, and everyone loves things like that. But I don't think, every single update seems to have a brand new format for the title. I don't think they're going to be sticking to a format anytime soon, because we had Combat update, then we had Frostburn update, then we had the Explorers update, the Adventurers update, then it was World of Colors, then it was Update Aquatic, then it was Village and Pillage. You can see how there's no consistent theme, and that kind of fits how the updates are. The updates kind of swirl all over the place because they're trying to update different parts of the game at different times. And yeah, so next update, I'm calling it now. It's gonna be the Never in the Never update, or like let's never go to the end update, and then they update the Never in the End. There we go, worked it out. There you go. Solutions for everyone right there. I'm glad that's not an answer though. But speaking of answers, the next little comment comes in from Onbrand Hamada, and again, you can see there's very clearly a question here, so let's just get rid of most of that and make it capes! Exclamation mark. So yeah, I've wanted to talk about capes for a while now, just to get something off my chest a little bit, because let's be real about capes in Minecraft. Minecraft Java has capes because they invented them very early on, and they're like, oh, it's a fun way to reward people who went to a convention. Minecraft Bedrock has never had capes, and although part of this is like, oh yeah, back in 2012, Minecraft Bedrock was not in a state where it could have capes. Think about Minecon 2016. Java Edition got capes, and Minecraft Bedrock could have added capes at this point, but I think they worked out two things. One, people were reselling capes, and there's a whole like kind of black market for it. And two, it's like, well, if people are selling capes and people are angry about capes, people are literally buying tickets just for these capes because they're worth so much. Why are we, giving them away for free as part of Minecon, something they later discontinued anyway? I think the sad reality is if capes had been invented in 2019, if capes had been invented even a few years ago, they would not be a free thing you get for going to Minecons. They would be a super elite item that you could buy for some purchase on the store. Like, oh, for $5, there's this cape, for $10, there's this cape. I think they never went with that model because, they already sell skins, and some skins come with capes, I want to say. But I think, like, if it weren't for the fact that they bundled it that way, I think like, capes are such a hotly desired item. People see YouTubers with capes. I think I have the Minecon 2015 cape. Some people see the 2011 cape, or the 2012 cape, or the 2013 cape, and people go crazy when they see these things. It's also true in RuneScape, right? You get level 99, you get a cape. I think that's how Minecraft would do things if they were to introduce capes in 2019. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, we get a cape for watching Minecon Live 2019. And it's like, no, oh, yeah, Minecon Live. Hey, I said it right. Hey, one sec. Congratulations! We said the new Minecon name, and we didn't even get it confused. Ooh, this is a monumental day for the game's branding. Anyway. So yeah, you've got to kind of admit that they probably wouldn't do them, and I don't think it's necessarily even like a spiteful thing, like, oh, how greedy. It's just well, I mean, they monetize the game, they want ways to monetize it, and if there's a way that people are literally paying hundreds of dollars for right now, why don't they charge a fraction of that? They can kind of make out, this easy kind of service that way, and I wouldn't even rule it out as a future plan. Like, they haven't spoken about capes in forever. Who knows when they'll bring them back? I don't know when they'll bring them back, and who knows what about you? Anyway, with that said, let's move into the next comment on a video that is not a question and does not require an answer, because Block Knox Whale says it's not going to be called the Cave Update, Underground Update. And yeah, I totally agree with the point of, like, everyone says, well, it's not a Cave Update, therefore this whole thing's not confirmed. And one, that's what they know right now. Like, they could always change their mind about calling it literally the Cave Update. And two, again, you wouldn't, just because the Village and Pillage Update wasn't called the NPC Village Update, it doesn't mean it didn't update villages. Just because the Village and Pillage Update was not called the Stone and Slabs and Stairs Update, it didn't mean it didn't update those things, and you've got to remember that for any future update titles. The update title is just a title. This video, look at the title. I don't know what it is, like maybe something about capes, because everyone gets enraged about capes. The fact that if I used capes in this title somewhere, that proves that capes clearly get you to click this video, right? So yeah, basically in the same way, titles are just they're a simplification of something. John Wick 3, Chapter 3, Parabellum, it just means like, oh yeah, well, they've got a little Latin phrase in there mixed with Chapter 3. It doesn't mean the Latin really comes up for anything more than one scene in the movie, and often it doesn't even come up in that one scene. Titles are titles, and content is content, and yeah, keep the two. Remember, just because something's not explicitly referenced in the title, it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And in that same way, let's move into the next comment, which does not require any input from me, because Ji Xiao says, IBX Toycat has meme-worthy video titles, I swear. And I wanted to tell you a story about Reddit, and because I got Reddit Silver for the first time, and I got it just by responding to someone who had credited me on, like, there was a big meme on Dank Memes. It was it was one of my posts from the Zero Seed video saying, like, this is proof global warming exists, how can you not believe it? And yeah, basically as part of that, the story is just, I got Reddit Silver. I learned Reddit Silver means nothing, it's just a thing on your profile that you can say you had. But the thing that I thought was way more interesting than just like, oh, someone got Reddit Silver, they gave it to me on a joke about global warming. But I realized, like, you know, looking at that Minecraft image of global warming, that has to help some number of people. I don't know how many, but some number of people must be thinking like, oh, wow, yeah, I didn't believe in global warming before, but this Minecraft meme has helped me. And you might say, well, that's going to be a tiny percentage of people. But given that 20,000 people upvoted it, and for every upvote, there's 9 viewers who didn't, you know, actually like decide to vote. And for every, you know, like viewer, there's someone who saw the thumbnail, the title, etc. You know, it does make you wonder, like, what impact did that one post make on global warming? It could have gone the other way, like, some people could be deniers, but it has to make some impact, right? When something goes that far, when something goes to hundreds of thousands of people, plus the original video itself, and I sometimes wonder, like, what if it was a positive impact? What if it was a negative impact? Do I get to claim credit for that? Like, if I go burn some plastic right now, I mean, I think I did for the 8Q video, like, does that get cancelled out? Or have I done a net good now that even when I fly around in planes, and super polluting planes in some cases, you know, does that, like, you know, like, you have to wonder, like, you know, your own impact, do you get to feel good if you do one giant, you know, nebulously neutral thing that causes some good, or should you feel good about your good thing that doesn't cause any effect? I don't know for sure, but there's a big question of morality to be taken from this, you know, this from this whole meme thing, I guess. So with that said, let's move in to this next question that does not require response, which is heck in a handbasket. I'm not a big fan of democracy, typical Britbong, and I don't know what Britbong is, but I assume you're insulting me, and that's not very polite. Let's block you right after this. But no, so here's the thing about democracy, right? I've said this before, I've said this again. There are many countries which are successful without democracy, and not every country with democracy is successful. There are some things where it's kind of clear cut, like, you know, besides China, there isn't a hugely economically successful you know, communist country, although you could be like, well, China kind of outweighs the rest of them. But you can see, like, there's a lot of trends you can see, like, oh yeah, when we, you know, have the death penalty for drug smuggling, generally reduces drug smuggling, but, you know, has a lot of other downsides. You can look at, I don't know, Germany and the Autobahn, like, no speed limit has the same number of deaths as a fairly low speed limit. There's lots of, like, science you can do looking between countries, and one of the sciences, I would say, looking at democracy, is that it's probably really useful for especially homogenous populations, and it's really useful for, you know, people who have the same goals that, you know, might change over time. But I would say, you know, looking at countries, it's not something that is required. It's something that we do because it makes us feel good. Like voting, you know, feeling like you're having a participation makes you feel great, makes you less likely to go demonstrate somewhere. And, you know, like, if you want to remove democracy, you have to remove demonstration. And then you basically just said, screw the people. And yeah, what I'm saying right there is I'm not a fan of democracy. It's just like a thing that I acknowledge exists. And it's like, well, we feel good about it. It's like, oh, it's like, you know, airport security. We all know it's not very effective, but, you know, it's better than not having it now, I guess, because then you'd be fearful that, you know, the first suicide bomber to pass through no airport security was on your plane. It's that sort of thing where, like, we all feel good about the system, even though, like, a statistically super high percentage of us don't participate. And yeah, it's interesting to me. And maybe it's interesting to you. I encourage you to have a strong feeling about democracy, preferably for it. But yeah, you know, I'm kind of neutral on it. You know, most people are super passionate. I'm just like, yeah, democracy's. I mean, if we could have it, I prefer it. It's like cheese, you know. If there's no cheese in my burger, I'm still gonna eat it. It just, you know, it'd be slightly nicer if there was in there. But you know, if it's gonna be bad cheese, then I'd rather have no cheese. But anyway, with that said, let's move into the last question. It's not a question, it's not an answer, and it's also not the last one because I don't care about consistency. So PieLover says, play Minecraft, but every time you place/destroy X number of blocks, you ask the Magic 8 Cube what type of exercise you should do. Each response would be a different predetermined exercise, and I threw away the 8 block. I thought I did it for a joke in that video, but I never took it out of the bin, so I guess I literally did throw it away. So there is no longer an 8 Cube, and fun fact of Toycat. But let's go into the very last neither question nor answer, which comes in from Kaoto, who says, notifications! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. And I wanted to use this opportunity to do something that's probably controversial, but I'm going to be entirely honest and say, hey, although I appreciate when people subscribe and turn on notifications because they want to see my stuff, if you don't like notifications, if you don't You know, like, if you don't want to hit the bell, you know, you can turn off notifications, but hitting the bell tells YouTube like you're serious about this. If you don't want to do that and you kind of like only want to watch like every 50th video, I think back in the day that was a good thing to have. Like, oh yeah, subscribe, see the videos, so at least you can pick from them. But I think nowadays probably harms the click-through rate. So I'm going to make the controversial decision. If you don't want notifications, you should unsubscribe. Let's go big or let's go home. And by big, I mean notifications. And by home, I mean unsubscribe. Because, you know, if you unsubscribe and you weren't watching the videos anyway, then it's no loss to either of us, right? You got some better use of your subscription function. Now you have one less of those little icons in your left-hand bar. And yeah, that's my big call in this video. You know what? I hope you did all enjoy the video. Like it if you did like it. Turn on notifications if you really liked it. And if you don't like me, unsubscribe. Do it. Do it, you coward. I reckon you won't. I reckon you don't have the guts. And now, there we go. You can never say I unsub because I don't like this or that. You know, if you're subscribed after this point, you're committed. I hope at least. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed. And Saturday, revolutionary, I think you'll find. Best weekly series in the world. Next week, I'll just go back to like answering normal questions in a normal fashion. It'll be a lot of fun. And now you appreciate why we have Q&A Saturday, because otherwise things go off the rails. What did we even talk about today besides Minecon not having capes, democracy not being good? As we've proven with Minecraft, right? Like, I mean, we literally had, both years we've had democracy, we've screwed it up. We've screwed up every chance at democracy. We don't deserve democracy, at least not in Minecraft. And then we also spoke at least a little bit about global warming and underground update. So yeah, actually, you know, title will be underground update and capes in some order. Look at this right now, making the executive decision based on what I remember most at the end of the video. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this. Actually, you know, I hope you didn't enjoy it. I hope you unsubscribed.